Welcome, everyone, to our podcast on small footprint data warehousing appliances. My name is Wayne Eckerson. I'm a Director of Research at TechTarget. I'm joined here today by Vicki Farrell, Director for Solutions Marketing for Data Warehousing and Business Intelligence in Dell Software Group. Vicki spent many years in the business intelligence and data warehousing space, and I'm honored to be able to talk with her today about this current topic. So let's begin. Vicki, data warehousing appliances have been on the market for a little over 10 years or so, but recently, in the past 12 months, several vendors have released lower-end, small footprint data warehousing appliances. So what are these things, and why are we seeing them now?
First of all, there's a general trend toward analytics right now. The benefits that large organizations have seen from using data warehousing and BI have been well documented. And in fact, studies like the recent one by the MIT Sloan Management Review show that top-performing organizations are twice as likely to use analytics to guide day-to-day operations and future strategies as lower performers. That and an overall awareness of analytics since the publication of books like Moneyball and Thomas Davenport's Competing on Analytics are driving companies of all sizes to be much more data-driven. A second reason is the competitive pressure. When you know your competitors are focused on being more data-driven, and surveys indicate that they are, that puts more pressure on you, which is added to the pressure that you already feel in a slowing economy. Another one is the advent of self-service and agile BI tools. The availability of so many affordable and easy-to-use tools has created additional demand on the part of end users who want to have the ability to access and analyze their data. So there are all these things going on, and most organizations know that to make the most of BI and analytics, they need to first get the data right. By that means providing an environment of trusted data via an organized data warehouse that integrates, reconciles, and cleanses data from various sources to ensure a level of data quality and consistency. So it makes sense that data warehousing vendors are responding to the increased demand with offerings that better meet the requirements of mid-market and departmental customers.
So as I hear you, I think when you say a small footprint data warehousing appliance, I'm thinking hardware, a database, and maybe an ETL tool all wrapped up together, pre-integrated, pre-configured, and shipped as is to a customer site. Is that pretty much what you mean by a small footprint data warehousing appliance?
Well, that is how I would define an appliance. There are products out in the market that call themselves appliances that aren't quite as well wrapped up and integrated as what you described, but that is the goal, yes.
So obviously Dell is one of the vendors offering a small footprint data warehousing appliance. So what distinguishes your product from others in the marketplace?
Well, one thing is Dell does understand the mid-market. This is where we focused for so long. So in building the Quick Start Data Warehouse appliance, we have focused on four things. Number one, making it simple. That's the reason we selected Microsoft SQL Server as the DBMS platform. Our clients tell us that they really like the price-performance ratio, and it's very popular in the mid-market. Skills are widely available, and in fact, there's an easy learning curve to acquire those skills. All software is pre-installed, and Dell includes a setup wizard. In fact, most customers are able to be up and running and ready to load their data within an hour. One of our beta test customers has been self-building data warehouses on Dell hardware using SQL Server for quite some time, and they found it 80% faster to use the appliance. The second thing we've focused on is making it powerful. This appliance is highly balanced and pre-tuned, and it's been validated against the Microsoft Fast Track reference architecture data warehousing workload to optimize both performance and capacity. The appliance is based on the latest versions of hardware and software, so the Dell 12th generation PowerEdge server and SQL Server 2012. The third thing we focused on is making it low risk. Now, here's where we differ from some of the other appliances on the market, as I mentioned earlier. Dell goes a step beyond the competition by including a cloud-based data integration service with Dell Boomi, as well as startup and training services that get clients off to a successful start, and quarterly health checks for the first year that help ensure that ongoing success. And the startup can be tailored to the customer's needs. So if a customer is not real familiar with data warehousing, we'll provide them with data warehousing boot camp. We'll give them extra Boomi training, or we'll help them get their first application up and running, whatever it is they want that's most important to them.
So that's interesting. You're not just providing a database on a hardware that comes pre-configured. You're also offering ETL tools as well as customized services, which is definitely unique. So that's very interesting. Now, you mentioned 4 things, so there's and you've already talked about 3 of them. So what's the last? And
the fourth one is that we've made it affordable. So you get everything you need in one integrated solution. All of the software, all of the hardware come prepackaged with the software pre-installed. And the support for the appliance comes from Dell, and the first year is included. And one other thing that we've done that goes a step beyond what most appliances in the market offer is in July we announced the 5 terabyte version, the Quick Start Data Warehouse Appliance 1000, and this week we'll be announcing the 12 terabyte version. That's 12 terabytes of user data. And it's configured so that it's easy to use standard SQL Server backup and restore from the 1000 model to the 2000, providing customers with a growth path when their data volumes grow.
So, Vicki, is there any way that you can share the price for Dell Quick Start?
Well, when we announced the 1000 model in July, we did announce the price as $69,990. That's the 5 terabyte version. That's U.S. dollars. So that comes to under $14,000 per terabyte. The 2000 model, the 12 terabyte version, will be announced later this week, and the announcement will include the pricing.
Great. So let's step back for a second. Let's just talk about data warehousing appliances as a whole. What would you say are the pros and cons of them in today's marketplace?
Well, I think there's really only one con, and that's the fixed configuration. So what you buy is what you get. But as I mentioned earlier, Dell does mitigate that to some extent by providing an upgrade path from the Model 1000 to the Model 2000.
Oh, that's great. All right, so I interrupted you. You were going to talk about the pros of the appliances.
Yeah, I think there are quite a few pros. The first one is an appliance is typically priced below the sum of the components. And this is something that when people are looking and pricing various offerings, they should make sure that they're getting that, because that is one of the things that you give up the configuration flexibility, but you absolutely should gain a price advantage over buying the components independently. Secondly, you have a single point of purchase and single point of support. A third one is the components are already integrated, so you don't have to worry about whether the pieces work together or work together well. That's already been done for you. A fourth one is that an appliance should be pre-configured, and the software should be pre-installed. And the balancing and tuning should have already been done for you so that you know that you're optimizing the capacity and the performance on that particular configuration, and that alleviates the risk of over or under configuring for your particular workload. And the last thing is that because the software is pre-installed, the deployment and time to value should be much shorter.
So I can see why this type of an appliance, or any appliance really, would be attractive to mid-market companies who don't normally have big IT staffs. They may not be trained in business intelligence or data warehousing specifically, so they can basically make one order and get almost everything they need to get up and running, including the services. So that would seem very attractive. But I know there are alternatives to an appliance. We live in a day of technology cornucopia. So there are other options that people are looking at and that vendors are selling, like cloud and open source. So I'm wondering how you would compare these alternatives to an appliance solution.
One of the things that an appliance buyer or somebody who's evaluating appliances is looking for is cost efficiency. Cost-conscious customers often look at open source. But with open source, you still need to buy the hardware, but you don't get the price discount that you typically do with an appliance. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're going to run it in production, you'll still need to buy software support. Another one is that open source products typically don't have as friendly a user interface or the robust management tools of a platform like SQL Server if you're looking at an open source database management system. Dell offers Boomi as a cloud-based subscription service rather than a license to minimize cost and overhead and also allow customers to pay as they go. So that's one other way that we're addressing cost in ways other than open source. But I think the biggest issue is that the customer will have to configure, integrate, and tune the platform, and whereas in the case of an appliance, this has already been done with an assurance of optimal performance. So that's open source. You mentioned cloud as another one. You know, while the cloud approach, and I'm sure you see this a lot too, Wayne, while the cloud approach has been readily adopted for many applications and workloads, BI and data warehousing is really not one of them. BI in the cloud is fairly new. It's just really starting. So organizations who want to minimize risk are not going to want to take an approach where best practices have not yet been established or where many of the products are new or rudimentary. Another one is software as a service. Well, that's another alternative that people may be looking at. Unlike OLTP, data warehousing and BI use is far less predictable. So unless you already have a known environment, what you will need in terms of support for things like data volume, number of data sources, data latency, concurrent use, and query complexity may be very difficult to anticipate. So price could vary widely. With an appliance, you know what you're getting, you know how it will perform, what it will cost, and you can do the price comparison to be sure that you really are getting a good deal.
Great. So you launched this Quick Start appliance back in the spring, right?
In July.
In July, okay. So it's pretty early on in the trajectory of this product, but what has been the response so far among your customers and prospects? What kind of questions do they ask or considerations do they point out?
Well, they find the less than $14,000 per terabyte list price to be quite attractive. They're really surprised at how much has been packaged in there. And I did mention one of the beta test customers who found that the deployment, and that's one of the things that we really did focus on, was making sure that the deployment would be fast and easy. And they did find that to be the case. So far, every customer has really praised us for including the services. As I said, we'll help them get their first query or report up and running successfully, and they really like that because it gets them started, it gets things underway, gets things moving, gets the users able to do what they want to with their data rather than kind of wallowing in that trying to get started mode. It's something that other software offerings from Dell have done prior to Quick Start, and it's been very successful, and we found it to be the case here as well.
You know, that makes so much sense, especially if you're targeting this product at the mid-market, which I said at the outset, you know, they definitely don't always have large IT staffs with BI expertise. So this really simplifies that, gives them, mitigates the risk and gets them up and running quickly. So it sounds like there's a lot of good things here, a lot to offer the marketplace.
You know, one other thing, Wayne, that customers like is Dell Boomi. A lot of times users who don't have a lot of experience with data warehousing focus more on the BI end, the BI tool, than on the back end. And as I talked about earlier, getting the data right. And how they're going to do data integration might not be the first thing that they think about. But they have found Dell Boomi with its visual interface to be particularly useful, easy to use, and really helps them pull in the multiple data sources that they need to provide a really valuable platform, trusted platform for their analytic users.
Well, that's all goodness. So anyway, thank you, Vicki, very much for spending time with us today. I'd like to thank our listening audience for tuning in to this podcast on small footprint data warehousing appliances with Vicki Farrell of Solutions Marketing at Dell. Thank you, everyone.